We welcome you to a Thursday afternoon matinee here in the Bay. Coming to you from the farm for men's soccer. The UC Davis Aggies are in town to face the third-ranked Stanford Cardinal right here at Laird Q. Kagan Stadium. Great to have you with us. I'm Troy Clarity. So glad that you have decided to spend part of your day here with us. And so many different subplots when talking about this game. Let's start here. Last week in the national polls, Stanford nowhere to be found, unranked, didn't receive any votes. This week, they're number 3. Stanford, of course, is no overnight sensation, and head coach Jeremy Gunn says if you pay too much attention to the rankings, you get knocked out of them. Still pretty neat to see 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 10 for just the second time in history. Big question for Stanford this year. Where will the goals come from? Lost a lot of firepower from last year's squad. Redshirt junior Carlo Agostinelli already stepping to the fore. Look at that steal and the score against the SMU Mustangs on Sunday. Oh, but he wasn't done yet. Wins the ball here. And the exquisite service to the freshman Fletcher Bank puts it in for the score. A goal and an assist for Carlo Agostinelli. Meanwhile, UC Davis brings a young team to the farm today. Just 7 upperclassmen for the Aggies on their roster. And Max Glasser, one of the leaders of this squad, the senior from Nevada, was all Big West second team last year. Aggies head coach Dwayne Schaefer says when the competition is at its toughest, that is when Max shines. Well, about 100 miles separate UC Davis and Stanford, but this is the first regular season meeting between the Aggies and the Cardinal in 17 years. Who finishes in the win column today? Let's find out in just a moment. Back to the farm on the Pac-12 Network. A bit warm here on the farm, but perfect to begin the month of September and to get things going between the third-ranked Stanford Cardinal and the Aggies from UC Davis. And as mentioned, these 100 miles just separate these two schools, but this is their first regular season meeting since 2005. You have to go back to September the 4th of that year, and the Aggies got the 1-0 win that afternoon. Now, it's not unusual that they play each other in the preseason, but quite rare that they face each other in the regular season. Perhaps that changes in the future. Who knows? What's changed for Stanford this year is a lot of new, fresh faces, especially some youngsters that we are definitely going to see a lot of. A couple of them in the starting 11 for the Cardinal today, particularly Will Cleary and Fletcher Bank. We'll talk more about those two young men as we go along. Liam Doyle, a banger of a goal off a free kick that he had in Stanford's win over SMU on Sunday. Zach Pohane has already shown some things. And one guy to potentially watch out for by the end of the season, Alfonso Tenconi Credias. I just love saying that name, but he's a fantastic striker for the Cardinals. Stanford at 2-0 on the season with wins over Villanova, a hard-fought 1-0 win over the Wildcats 1 week ago today. And then a 3-1 win. It was tight for the first 10 minutes, but then Stanford found some distance, went up 3-0 by the time the half was recorded, and were able to hold off the Mustangs from there to get the 3-1 win. You see Jeremy Gunn right there in the middle of your screen in his 10th year as the head coach of the Stanford Cardinal, 3-time national champion, 4-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year, and one of the more intriguing guys in all of college soccer. UC Davis Aggies are 0-1 on the season. They have a longtime head coach themselves in Dwayne Schaefer. In his 27th season running the show for UC Davis, he has won the Big West Coach of the Year award 3 times, the last time coming in a 2019 campaign in which the Aggies made the NCAAs. They actually had the 14th seed that season, but lost to Louisville. But still, that was their first NCAA tournament bid in 11 years. Schaefer trying to get back to that level. Matt Frank taking his place in the net for the Stanford Cardinal, the 5th-year senior from Bloomfield, Michigan. Had a couple of saves for the Cardinal against SMU on Sunday. Jeremy Gunn says he's been a wonderful, steadying influence since taking over the reins last year. 87 degrees this afternoon. Could get a couple of degrees warmer as we continue here on the campus of Stanford University. The Aggies and the Cardinal. Away we go. Enjoy the match. Aiming for Ethan Horde for the Aggies, but instead cut off by the Cardinal. Carlo Agostinelli with his first touch. He will likely have many with all the opportunities that he could potentially get or is hunting for in this match against the Aggies.
And then go to the next one.
Already holding up Keegan Hughes for a moment. Bouncing towards Horde. And Horde has it on the far side. Keegan Hughes right there with him. Hughes, the dominant center back captain. And he was part of a fantastic defensive effort for Stanford against Villanova. Cardinal went up 1-0 in the 10th minute off a goal by Jackson Kill, a sophomore from San Diego. And they really had to hold on from there. And Jeremy Gunn was quick to point out that they had terrific penalty box defense, especially in the second half of that game. As that game was, in the first half, really dictated by Stanford offensively. But second half was more of a grind them out kind of game. The style of play that Stanford doesn't mind trying to win matches in. They've certainly proven over the years they can win any which way you want to go. That pass behind Fletcher Bank and out of bounds. Aggies will throw it in. Max Glasser, I told you about him at the start of the show, the senior from Novato, has now started 42 straight games. Meanwhile, for the Aggies, 0-1 on the season. So only one match played so far in 2022, but this is the second match in a row against a top 5 ranked Pac-12 opponent. They faced the 3rd ranked Oregon State Beavers up in Corvallis last week. Beavers got the 2-1 win. Marcus Garcia, a freshman for the Aggies, tied it in the 58th minute, but then the Aggies gave one up in the 70th minute and could not recover from that. As the Beavers began their season in the win column, Dwayne Schaefer said, look, Oregon State's a bit older and more experienced individually, and that helped him, but was happy with how things went by and large for the Aggies up in Corvallis. Free kick coming. Agostinelli and Will Riley standing over it. Into the 18, headed out Glasser, the first one there. High chipper from Riley, but claimed easily by Charles Jansen, the keeper for UC Davis. Redshirt sophomore out of Sebastopol, California, up in Sonoma County. Just a few miles west of Santa Rosa. Nice spot. Glasser, the chest trap. Aggies trying to find a little bit of room, and they do on the far side. A couple of options in front of him. Silly trying to get it back, but it's sent out of the park by Sean Bilter, one of the captains for the Aggies. Young team, as mentioned, for UC Davis. 21 first and second year players on their roster, and just 7 upperclassmen. So we told you about the youth movement for Stanford a few moments ago. Certainly a youth movement in effect for the Aggies as well. In the corner, in the air, coming down towards Fletcher Bank, a bit beyond his reach. Bank trying to get it back, and does. The poke back to Keegan Tingey. Bank serves it up. Double teamed. Bailed out by Tingey. Stanford has had some moments and really some halves of terrific attacking soccer already this year. Small sample size, just two matches in. But already Stanford has shown, particularly in the first half against Villanova and through much of the first half against SMU on Sunday, an ability to link passes, to be aggressive, and to give teammates chances to make big plays, which Jeremy Gunn certainly appreciates in a big-time way. Along the touchline towards Agostinelli, sent away. chipped off and mishit by Agostinelli with his first look in front of goal. I'm sure there will be many more for Agostinelli. With Jansen, who had 6 saves against the Beavers last week. His career goals, European pro soccer player and /or winemaker. Of course, UC Davis has a terrific viticulture program, probably one of the best on the planet. Off the shoulder, no call. Turning, there's Marcus Garcia, but dispossessed quickly. Tingy wins that one back. Out to Fletcher Bank, can it get there in time? Glasser recovers. Well, Glasser, one of the defensive leaders, one of the team leaders of this squad. Andy Velasquez, number 10 for the Aggies, had it for a moment. He's another one of the leaders of this young team. Lost his footing. Aggies playing it forward towards Garcia. Noah Adnan, part of that Cardinal back line, which is so difficult to crack. They make it very hard on anyone who comes in their path. Adnan, the junior from Gaithersburg, Maryland, played back to Matt Frank, had a couple of saves against SMU. Too strong for Fletcher Bank. Well, overall, grand scheme of things, Jeremy Gunn was happy with how the first weekend went. Said there was plenty to celebrate. A lot of guys got their first starts. A few guys got their first goals. Now the job ahead is to keep learning and keep growing. Jackson Kill had his first goal against Villanova. Out to Will Cleary, one of the freshmen for the Cardinal. Ahead to Riley once more. Hovering just outside the 18. To the touchline, cross just beyond Fletcher Bank. Fletcher Bank, 5'10". Maybe if he was 6'2", might have been able to give that one some real danger. Freshman from Bakersfield, his twin brother Palmer, also on the squad. Fletcher's 2 minutes older, and I'm sure he reminds Palmer of that every chance he gets. To Jackson Kill. Silly, poked forward, a bit too far ahead. Kill was the closest one to it. Well, small windows here and there in the Davis defense along the back line. Almost found Kill on the other side of it. Silly with the attempt. Here come the Cardinal again. Out of bounds, UC Davis to throw it in. And back to Frank. Hughes aiming for Kill, but finding Cole Pond instead. Pond, a sophomore from San Jose. Center towards Agostinelli, off an Aggie defender's foot, and that was very, very close to being a very fortunate result for the Cardinal. As it is, the first corner kick of the match coming up. Well, that was close, a lot of traffic in front of the net. With the setup on the far side, it was built off his foot. Agostinelli to take it. Front post, Headed out. Jockeying for position, trying to find it. Garcia. But won back by Riley. Left foot. Agostinelli. Snap header off target. Well, Agostinelli, and we showed you the clip of his assist against SMU at the top of the show. Terrific service. Able to find teammates and give them chances to make plays. Jackson Kill, the latest beneficiary of some on-target service. But the snap header just a little bit off towards the far post. There's Carlo. Redshirt junior from Paris, France. And it's heading his way now. Waits, sizes it up, absorbed. Leaves it for Doherty, and winning it back. Trying to find a way through, but Cleary stands his ground. Slide tackle, got the player as well. Free kick coming up for the Cardinals. Will Riley took a bit of a spill. Mentioned that UC Davis with only 7 upperclassmen on their roster and 21 first and second year players. I asked Dwayne Schaefer, the Aggies head coach, how has that kind of affected the dynamic of how things have worked so far for the team? And he said, well, you know, when you've only got 12 days to prepare for your first game, you know, you're doing a lot more teaching of things other than what you want to be teaching. Nice one touch by Ethan Horde, but Frank right there on frame. And I like the idea of the direct ball. Trying to find Horde, a junior, a transfer from Racine, Wisconsin, transferred from Wisconsin Green Bay. Got the start for the Aggies against Oregon State. And I'm sure that, especially once the winter months roll around, and he looks at the weather in Davis versus the weather in Green Bay, he's going to be loving every minute of things in Northern California. Foul on the far side. Stanford the kick. But Schaefer said, look, because this team is so young and because there's been, you know, so little lead time up until our first game, I'm too busy teaching guys about where the locker rooms are and where to catch the bus and where the training table is, as opposed to our values and tactics and things like that. Coming down towards Agostinelli. Just slithers through cracks. And the hard strike off target. Boy, Agostinelli just slithers around defenders. But it was Cam Silly who had a chance at it, but off frame. Silly, the senior from Alamo, California, over in the East Bay. But it's been, and I've talked to my share of head coaches already this season in doing this matches, including the 2 that will be involved in the big women's soccer match here tonight. Paul Radcliffe from Stanford and Erica Dombach from Penn State. That'll be a doozy. Stick around, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Pac-12 Network for that one. Ahead, Agostinelli holds it, shoots it, deflected. Sean Bilter escorting Agostinelli the whole way down. Well, so far the Aggies have been right there, step for step with Stanford defensively. And Bilter with a perfect example here. You just almost hold your breath, especially when Agostinelli has the ball in those kinds of situations. Let's see what he does here. Service, back posts, skips off, and behind the touchline. Carlo, Romeo, Cesar, Agostinelli. I'm sure I can say that a lot better, but that's the best I got. In Horde's direction, sent back by Hughes. Riley turns. Bilter sends it out of harm's way. Cardinal take it right back. Center, nope. And a corner kick, another one coming up for Stanford. Will be their 4th of the match already. 15 minutes in here on the farm. Great to have you with us. Stanford and UC Davis. Cardinal versus the Aggies for the first time in the regular season since 2005. Played short again. The physical in there. Tried to settle, couldn't get a clean hit. Sent forward, Adnan, the closest Cardinal to it. Glasser right there. Another corner opportunity forthcoming for the Cardinal. But with such little lead time, both on the men's and the women's side, coaches, especially if they have younger teams, don't have a whole lot of time to teach tactics and culture and all those sorts of things. They got to pretty much shove kids in the pool and go from there. Gostinelli in the mixer. Silly claims it. Survives the bump. In the air, right to Jansen. Well, Silly strung that one out as long as he could. He tried to give himself as much of a play and his teammates as much of an opportunity as well, but no one quite on goal.
Are you picking it to a specific player or just in a general area?
And keep in mind that the women's soccer season began a week before the men's did. So a lot of their report days on that side of things were, what, like around August 1st or so?
The space is known.
And then they're playing regular season games 2 weeks later. Kill tries to adjust. He's dispossessed. Velasquez in from out of nowhere. Velasquez, all Big West honorable mention last year, made second team in 2019. Horde tried to adjust, but Hughes got the better of him. Garcia. Matt Frank calls off Noah Adnan and claims it himself. Marcus Garcia, the current Big West Freshman of the Week. Originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, but he transferred after a year in Maryland. And he actually got the game-tying goal against the Beavers in Corvallis in the second half last week. And Dwayne Schaefer said, because Marcus spent that year in Maryland, he didn't come into this program all wide-eyed and as in awe of things as maybe a true freshman might have, who hadn't had the experience on the D1 level just yet. Garcia, by the way, also the Gatorade Player of the Year from the state of New Mexico at the end of his high school career. There he is. Ton of athletic ability and potential, and Dwayne Schaefer says he'll get a lot better once he learns this level of the game and our opponents. Slide tackle by Doherty. Gets a talking to from the official, and the Cardinal flat on his back. I believe that's Mark Fisher trying to gather himself. Gets a help from the captain, Keegan Hughes. And Fisher back on his feet. Pac-12 Freshman of the Year for the 2020 season. Back to Frank. Down towards Riley. A bit of a collision on the far side. Riley gathering himself, and looks like that collision might actually get whistled, potentially for a foul. Let's see here. Yeah, I think so. Nope. Nope, throwing instead. No one can get there, and it's a goal kick coming up for the Cardinal. Stanford last year, 6-6-6. Their first time missing the NCAA tournament since 2012. And a couple other firsts since that they would rather not have on their resume from last year. First loss to UCLA since 2013 last year. First loss to San Diego State since 2011. And found themselves unranked at points in the 2021 season for the first time since 2018. Wom back, well done. Riley hanging in there. Now that being said, even though Stanford was unranked during a portion of the 2018 season, they still finished that year making the NCAA quarterfinal round. So they were just a step away from the College Cup. We should note that Stanford began this season unranked, and this week they're number 3. Go figure. Doherty back to the sideline. Aggies trying to find a way forward. Haven't seen much action on this end of the pitch for like the last 10 minutes of game time or so. But Stanford 2-0 so far in their non-conference portion of the season. In fact, Pac-12 has done quite well in non-conference action to this point after 1 week of play. More on that in a moment. But first, let's take you through the corner kick for the Aggies. First one for UC Davis today. An option short. Doherty hanging around the top of the 6. And that one didn't even have a chance. Sent back forward, but out of room. Ryan Dieter tried to get it back, but could not. So far, so good for Pac-12 men's soccer in non-conference action to this point. 7-3-2 so far this season. Stanford opened last season with a 6-3-2 record, so improvement there against non-conference foes. And oh, by the way, Stanford, or in the Pac-12 rather, the conference faring the best against non-conference foes of anyone in the nation. 733 winning percentage. See, good things happen when you back the Pack, right? Towards Horde. Outside Doherty. Left foot. Back post. Couldn't get a clean hit. Kevin Welch was charging on that one, and he was unmarked and had a chance, but it just fell off the side of his foot. Boy, and that was incredible. Perfect placement by Doherty. But couldn't get off an accurate hit. So timeout has been called. This may be a hydration break. It was 87 degrees when we started things here at Stanford. And it's still 87 degrees right now. So everyone's got to stay hydrated, stay healthy, and get ready because it's only going to get warmer here by about a couple degrees or so. A full-on heat wave is expected to hit the Bay Area at some point this weekend, particularly coming up on Monday and Tuesday. So, got to stay healthy out there. We'll take a break ourselves. I got a bottle of water to my right. I might hydrate myself too. Scoreless midway through the first half.
Saturday, football is back, and we've got a full slate of games you won't want to miss. First, at 11:30, UCLA takes the field to host Bowling Green. At 3, all eyes are on the number 14 Trojans as they square off in SoCal against Rice. Then at 6:30, we head north to the Palouse as the Cougs take on the Vandals. Saturday on Pac-12 Network, presented by Taco Bell.
Pac-12 Hour Stories, bringing you the most compelling and emotional stories from around the Conference of Champions.
It was a moment of like, he's here, he's with us. We can have a little bit more closure.
Once I was a member of a collegiate varsity program, that's when the doors flew open.
When you think about Title IX, like you can't not think about the impact she had on the sports realm.
And you're just the true definition of Black girl magic.
Pac-12 Hour Stories. Watch the latest episode anytime on Pac-12 Now.
Back to action as we are in the first half between Stanford and UC Davis. Scoreless here on the farm. Troy Clarity taking you through this one. Hydration break done. And the Aggies trying to find a way through. Cleary gets past one, sent away. Horde perhaps had the best chance at it. But another corner coming up for the Aggies. Substitution for Stanford, Liam Doyle, the freshman, is in for the Cardinal. Doyle from Tokyo, Japan, had a goal against SMU on Sunday that might have to be seen to be believed. A corner from UC Davis. Right foot in the air towards the penalty spot, sent out. It's Hughes. Falling the pond. Back to Glasser. In the corner, but couldn't connect with the teammate. Here's Liam Doyle. Pace, power, and a terrific finisher. That's the book on that young man, who also played rugby for the Hong Kong under-14 national team. And banged one in off of a free kick against SMU on Sunday. Agostinelli's had a couple of looks so far today. Towards Fletcher Bank. And everyone on the Stanford bench was hollering for the foul there on Doherty. And the yellow card shown. Doherty in the book, as Will Cleary was sent cartwheeling and helicoptering towards the ground.
Yellow card, UC Davis, number 17, Emmanuel Doherty.
So that garnered the call.
And for UC Davis, number 15.
Doherty comes off, and Kaysen Goodman comes on. Kaysen Goodman, a freshman from Santa Barbara. Fletcher Bank. And too strong off of Tingy's foot. Stanford with a set of twins on its team, the Banks, Fletcher, and Palmer. UC Davis with the Goodman brothers, Luke and Kaysen. They're not just twins, they're quadruplets. Another brother, Barrett, and a sister, Layla.
And for UC Davis, number 7, Andrew Dutra.
Andrew Dutra coming in for the Aggies. Ryan Dieter coming off. With the temperatures as warm as they are, would not surprise me if there's a bit of a rotation with plenty of reinforcements on both sides. Left foot in the box, aim for Agostinelli. Riley had a shot at it too. Out of bounds, corner kick. Well, once again, another cross that has a chance. Let's take another look at it ourselves. This one from Tingy. Just goes off of pond. But Agostinelli and Riley both had chances at it. Punched out. Settled, sent back Doyle. Inside the 18, but lost the dribble. Ahead to Kaysen Goodman. Kaysen giving chase. That's a legit whistle. Welch, who had the Aggies' closest chance in the 23rd minute. Now Garcia, met by two white shirts. Cam Silly just punches it out to Fletcher Bank. Adnan to Hughes. Kaysen Goodman tries to find Horde a bit behind him. Almost found another on-rushing Aggie. That was Andrew Dutra, who was trying to find himself in the mix and almost did.
For UC Davis, number 21, Hayden Carlson. And in for Stanford, number 13, Shane DeFlores.
Shane DeFlores coming in, replacing Will Riley. DeFlores, the sophomore from Danville, California. Glasser has that one spin more towards the top of the 18. Fletcher Bank swoops in. Doyle turns. And Fletcher Bank took a hand to the face. Get a little rough out there sometimes. Goal kick for the Cardinal.
In for UC Davis, number 9, Scott Bowie.
Scott Bowie coming in for the Aggies. Aimed for Doyle. Ward tries the one touch. Kaysen Goodman can't get there. Well, I don't mind the idea. As Horde just tried to one touch it and put it on frame and tried to strike it, while also at top speed and trying to fight off a defender. Just mistimed it. At the other end, ahead, centered, blocked. Well, recovery from UC Davis has been a skill that it has been called on to show on several occasions so far this afternoon. And they're able to get it done once again there. That was Bowie who came back to make the defensive play. Corner kick number 6 for Stanford. Chipped. Fisher hangs on to it. Boy, I thought you might give that one a rip towards goal. Riley does, right on frame. It was actually Agostinelli who got the last touch on it for Stanford. "30 minutes in here on the farm." Great to be with you on the Pac-12 Network. Troy Clarity. Stanford versus UC Davis, scoreless between the Cardinal and the Aggies. Still looking for our first tally. Garcia gets sideswiped by Silly. And finally the whistle. Kept it going for a moment for player advantage, but then after that they'll bring it back. Small opportunities, small windows on the attack for both teams, defensive minded. The wall, a two-man wall in front of the ball. You see Matt Frank directing the traffic. Velasquez hesitates. And the on-rushing Aggies, a snap header into the side of the net. Hayden Carlson sent that one spinning towards the back post.
In for UC Davis, number 25, Jason Sue.
Jason Sue into the match for the Aggies, with Velasquez coming off. Mentioned Stanford not making the NCAA tournament for the first time in 9 years last season. In the 18, shoots, deflected, and scores! Shane Shane DeFlores finishes the fast break, and Stanford takes a 1-0 lead. Well, that was just tenacity with defense turning to offense. Agostinelli, I believe, was in the mix there defensively, and Shane DeFlores puts it through. That is his first goal of his Cardinal career. DeFlores did not play last season, but getting opportunities this year. And Jeremy Gunn liked the first weekend. A lot of guys scoring their first goals of their careers here at Stanford. Well, add another one to the list. DeFlores finishing off the opportunity. That one has to Garcia, as Matt Frank calls everybody off and claims it for himself. Well, and you hear coaches say it all the time in soccer. Defense doesn't start at the back. It starts at the front. And with Agostinelli and friends digging in there and winning the ball back and giving their teammates opportunities to perhaps put one through, that one paid off. The pressure that Stanford can certainly apply and do it so well and frustrate you and just lean on you, especially once the game enters the latter portions of the second half. That coming into factor there. Silly is on his knees. And it needs a moment as he tries to get resorted. Zach Lillington has entered the match for UC Davis. He's a freshman from Fairfax, California. Lillington's granddad, Glenn, UC Davis class of '58, and also an emeritus clinical professor of medicine at Stanford. So the Lillington house might be a house divided here today. Cardinal to throw it in. But first a substitution. With Agostinelli coming off and Leighton Purchase coming on, a junior from Denver. Purchase played in 16 games last year, started 4 of them. Had a good preseason, according to Jeremy Gunn. Last year, he worked hard, but was just unlucky. That's how this sport can be sometimes. Adnan plays it towards Doyle. But Luke Goodman wins that one. There's Leighton. Tingy throws it in. Man on. And fouled. Lillington was speeding in on Hughes, who may have had a bit less time than he may have originally thought. Jeremy Gunn's final analysis of last year's uncharacteristic showing was that, look, it just proves how fine the margins are and how fickle the sport can be, which is something that he's been aware of over the years because he's readily admitted, look, Stanford's been on the right side of those fickle margins for many, many years. And a few of those years it ended up with them hoisting the big trophy at the very end of it all. But he also noted that injuries, certainly to big-time weapons, Zach Ryan, Sonny Buddha, those guys were never really healthy among a bunch of others. Is Fletcher Bank on rushing, but Jansen sends that one out of harm's way. But Gunn said, look, too many guys were playing at about 75%. So it was never really quite all hands on deck for Stanford at any point last year. But then he also added, you know what, maybe sometimes you need a hard reset after a long period of sustained success. I mean, look, Jeremy would have, I'm sure, preferred to have been in the NCAA tournament in the knockout stage and have a chance, because anything can happen there. Let's see what happens here. Stops on a dime. Back to Doyle, chip towards Fletcher Bank, the header impeded. Glasser right there. He's been in the right place at the right time in a couple of moments. Tingy, centered, headed, off frame. Leighton Purchase with a good look at it. And Tingy showing some acuity in the service department with a nice move, the feint to head to the baseline.
Number 12, Sept.
Nothing of that one. Corner kick number 7 for Stanford right here. Shane DeFlores, who scored in the 33rd minute to take it. Punched out. Dutra sends it forward. Kason Goodman trying to track it down. Tries to pressure. Aiming for DeFlores. And out of bounds. Glasser again. Glasser's been busy. Bilter with a couple of moments defensively as well for the Aggies. Zach Bohane entering the match a few moments ago. As you look at Glasser. Bohane, the freshman from Los Gatos High School, just down the road. There he is. Has a great work rate. Reminds Jeremy Gunn a lot of Drew Skundrich. Remember him? The terrific things that he did in the recent past for Stanford. Cross doesn't get past Cleary. Aiming for Purchase. Off the chest of Cleary. Check that to Flores. Sets up Purchase. He plays it back. You know, it just occurred to me, Stanford has a Purchase on their roster, and they've also got a couple of Banks. Let's see how money those guys can be by the time it's all said and done this season. Couldn't resist. Purchase has it poked away. Luke Goodman doing the defensive honors. And UC Davis will throw it in. Glasser to start it off. Glasser assisted on Marcus Garcia's goal against Oregon State last week. Avoids the slide tackle, serves it up, scoots it wide of the post. Holy smokes, a close call for Kason Goodman.
He's got to be
Boy, and that was terrific placement. Watch this from Lillington, tight-roping, finding Kason Goodman, and had everything he wanted. Except the back of the net. Less than 5 minutes to go first half. Aggies have had a couple of good looks. swarmed immediately. Dutra had no chance at that one. Too many white shirts. Silly plays it back to Hughes. Well, coming up at halftime on Saturday afternoon, across the street from us here at Kagan Stadium, is Stanford Stadium. And it will be the host of Stanford football's season opener against Colgate, a game you can watch right here at 5 p.m. on Saturday on the Pac-12 network. And you'll take an inside look at David Shaw's day and Tanner McKee's day, the Cardinal quarterback, at Pac-12 Media Day down in L.A. That was a fun day. It was always cool to be in the building for that one in late July. In fact, David Shaw was here, walked in right before the kick. We exchanged pleasantries, checked out the first 10 minutes, and now he's probably on the practice field right now as the Cardinal get ready for the Raiders. Three minutes left, first half. Davis pressuring a little bit here, giving Frank some room, finding Adnan. Collects to Fisher. Tried to squeeze it to Purchase. A little bit of jockeying and jostling between Case and Goodman and Keegan Hughes. Silly trying to catch up with it. With 2 minutes left in the first half. Blue throw in. Swooping in, trying to keep it alive for the Aggies. That one comes down and bumped. Jansen gets a bump of his own from Purchase. Well handled by Glasser. Chopped from behind, and that's a foul on Davis. Final minute, first half. As Mark Fisher was taken to the turf in that sequence. The engine room covers a lot of ground. Plays his role quite well. Complements with Cam Silly quite well, as those two patrol the midfield for the Cardinal. Jansen sends it away. A spinner comes down just beyond the midfield stripe. Tripped up. Foul. Aggies will try to get something going.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
But the first half comes to a close. Aggies had a couple of good looks. Stanford with some tight windows, but they found a way through in the 33rd minute thanks to that young man. Number 13, middle of your screen, Shane DeFlores, putting it through and giving Stanford a 1-0 lead at the half. Halftime festivities will go from football to football in just a moment. Cardinal rely on that formula here once again today? Or can the Aggies get something going here in the second half and beat a top 5 ranked team here against the Stanford Cardinal. So much left to decide here in the second half. Glad to have you on board for it all. Was 87 degrees at kick, 87 degrees as we begin the second half. Coming down to Will Riley, but overshoots him and bounces into the crowd. Aggies to throw it in. UC Davis used 17 players in that first half. Bit of a wraparound there by Lillington, not called. Silly plays it back. And it's Tingy, far side. Cason Goodman chasing. Falls eventually to Andy Velasquez for the Aggies. Stanford using 14 field players to the Aggies 17 in the first half. Just inside the 18, hanging on to it, shoots and hits. Tenacity pays off. And for Stanford, it's a time to kill. Jackson Kill, his second goal of the season, makes it 2-0 Stanford. And the Cardinal waste no time here in the second half. Another look as Kill, with 4 blue shirts around him, he beats them all, then the keeper. A well-earned tally for that young man, the sophomore from San Diego, who scored against Villanova in the early going there. That was in the 10th minute against the Wildcats last week. But now he puts one in the back of the net here to begin the second half. Jackson Kill, Cathedral Catholic High School down in San Diego. Same high school as Casey Toohill, former pass rusher for the Stanford Cardinal from just a few years ago. Now with the Washington Commanders at last check. And Jackson's dad, Skip, played baseball for Cal State Fullerton. In fact, Skip was on that 1995 national championship team, featuring guys like Mark Kotze, who's now the manager of the Oakland A's. Jeremy Giambi was on that team too. I saw those guys in person. That was a heck of a squad for the Titans in '95. Back to soccer. Served up to Riley. Riley keeps it on the ground, intercepted by the Aggies. Bilter. Aggies to throw it in. Well, we mentioned that Stanford's the kind of team that leans on you until you finally break in the second half, and then literally moments later, Jackson Kill scores to make it 2-0. I wouldn't necessarily call that a break for the Aggies, but certainly Jeremy Gunn appreciates that development in a big-time way. And let's face it, the big question for Stanford coming into the season, after the Cardinal lost Oseni Buda, who was drafted by San Jose, and Zach Ryan, who signed with New York in the MLS, Will Richmond, Gabe Siegel as well. The big question for the Cardinal this year was, hey, where are the goals going to come from? Agostinelli, one of those options, puts it into the box. Sent out by Velasquez for the Aggies. But Agostinelli, one of those options. Jackson Kill certainly will be counted on to score goals. Liam Doyle. And Alfonso Tenconi-Gradius, whom we have not seen yet this season, but could factor into the attacking mix for the Cardinal by the time it's all said and done. Stanford lost so much firepower from last year's squad, in fact, that their leading active goal scorer entering this season was Keegan Hughes, the center back. That's Hughes with 4 goals entering the season. Centered, headed out, back to Silly. Doesn't try the quick return. Fletcher bank turns. Deflected off an Aggie defender. And I'll say Fletcher's first name every time I mention him because his brother, twin brother, Palmer's also on the team. just to make sure our banks are straight. Agostinelli went the wrong direction. Or maybe the pass went in the wrong direction, depending upon whom you talk to. Foul on the far side, UC Davis with the free kick. Ethan Horde. Horde transferred from Wisconsin Green Bay to UC Davis in April. He had started 17 matches in his career for the Phoenix, actually scored 2 goals at Robert Morris in the 2021 season. Dwayne Schaefer, the Aggies head coach, says that Ethan's been terrific so far. Bilter got ahead on that one. Horde chasing. Pond doesn't quite get to the 18. Kill using his body a bit. That one rolling beyond everyone's reach before Pond can track it down. Pond, a sophomore from San Jose. Of course, no shortage necessarily of Northern California kids on this Aggie roster. Almost fell to Horde's foot. Boy, Silly got everything except the ball there. Nice move, though. Far sideline, Tingy defending. Adnan. Agostinelli shoved to the ground. So those are among the names to watch for Stanford when it comes to goal production this year. Carlo Agostinelli, Jackson Kill, Liam Doyle. You can also certainly throw Shane DeFlores in that mix, whether you want to or not, as Shane has already scored so far today. There's Keegan Hughes. Intercepted. Taken back. Davis ball again. Kason Goodman showed you his close call in the first half. Not a clean hit. Ahead. Finds its way through. Couple of options. Fletcher Bank and Carlo Agostinelli, but instead Bilter steps in front of everyone. Aggies throwing. Out to Pond. Kill. Velasquez. Well, I asked Aggie head coach Dwayne Schaefer after facing Oregon State in what ways could that have potentially been a good dress rehearsal for facing Stanford and facing Pac-12 opponents in back-to-back matches. And he said, well, in a lot of ways, it's not a great dress rehearsal because Stanford and Oregon State play such dramatically different styles of ball. Fletcher Bank strikes. And it's out of the park. But they play such dramatically different styles. So it's from that standpoint, it's not really accurate to call that potentially a good dress rehearsal for facing Stanford. That being said, Dwayne did mention, look, Oregon State kind of gave us a taste of the level of play needed to win. And just to kind of remind us of what it's like to face Pac-12 competition. Stanford a bit more of a physical team, as we see there. Lillington. Kason Goodman. Left foot towards an on-rushing Horde outside the box. Free kick coming up. As Horde was clipped from behind, I believe they're going to get Fletcher Bank for this one. Ball about 20 yards out. just off to the side of the circle. A lot of things you can do here if you're UC Davis. Matt Frank well aware of that. Doesn't clear the wall. Hughes uses his head and then his foot to clear the ball out both times. Those dramatically different styles between Oregon State and Stanford, but Dwayne Schaefer says, look, I just want to play the best opponents that we possibly can every year. And playing Pac-12 opponents in back-to-back matches to start the season is just how it worked out. Glasser recovers and gets it back. And puts that one off the awning. That really isn't shielding much of anything over on the far side right now based on the Suns' position. You can kind of figure out where the shade is and where folks can actually see what's happening based on where they're sitting along the bench. Everyone's sitting across the top of it, trying to keep the sun from being in their eyes. But Cam Silly swooping in and was almost off to the races, but was contacted before he could really get going. UC Davis is back in the Bay Area as they'll face St. Mary's on Sunday over in the East Bay. St. Mary's certainly a program that has done terrific things over the past few years. And the Big West is no joke either. You got UC at Santa Barbara to deal with. They've long been one of the torch holders in Big West men's soccer. UC Irvine picked to do big things potentially as well. In fact, the Gauchos and the Anteaters on top share the top spot in the Big West preseason poll. UC Davis was third, right behind them. Fairly close call for Will Riley. Cleary loses his footing, and Lillington, who's been busy. Pond puts it back forward. And off of Cleary's head and out of bounds. Will Cleary, the freshman from Windsor, Connecticut. Center midfielder by trade, but has been at right back so far this season for the Cardinal. Velasquez to the far side. Center for Lillington. Gets a head on it, but out of bounds. But Lillington has given UC Davis some size at 6'4", and a little bit of pace as well, as he has become a bit more and more of a focal point for the Aggies' attack, it seems, starting around midway through the first half when he came into the match. Riley, the closest Cardinal. Pond, the nearest Aggie. And that will go in UC Davis's direction. Horrid Step over, tries to beat Cleary, and then takes him down afterwards. A bit of finesse and a bit of physicality shown by Horde in that sequence with multiple step overs of the ball, and then once he realized that he didn't quite have Cleary beaten, just tackled him to the ground. But Cleary, a nice job of hanging in there and not falling for any of the footwork. Glasser aimed for Lillington, who gets it. Looking for a bit of help. Dieter outside. Kason Goodman has to center it for a Horde. Keegan Hughes right there. Pond right to Horde. Settles it quickly. But puts it right on frame. A couple of hops right to Frank. I believe he nutmegged the defender along the way there. As Horde starting to come to the fore a bit more in the last couple minutes of play. Substitutions continuing for both sides. Shane DeFlores re-entering the match. Shane came off the bench and scored the first goal of the game. That came in the 33rd minute. With Cam Silly coming out. Just over 60 minutes in here at Stanford. Cardinal lead the UC Davis Aggies 2-0. Aggies trying to change that. Neatly flicked away to Flores. Terrific play. Well, Jeremy Gunn, proud of how his attack came out in the first half against Villanova last week, but more proud of anything else from that match in his team's ability to defend the penalty box. Said it was outstanding, and there was certainly a sequence involving Keegan Hughes in which he was one-on-one with Villanova's best defender. And it certainly looked like that was going to be big trouble against Stanford, but Hughes with a terrific block. Stanford able to defend the penalty box. As you look at the senior from Heath, Ohio. We've seen that for much of the way here again this afternoon. Pass off target. As we roll through the substitutions and add a few more. Zachary Batchelder, Chase Tannen, and Dan Becker coming in for the Gauchos.
Pick it up, Stanford. Let's go.
All of those guys making their debuts in this game. Batchelder trying to get there, lets his teammate do the dirty work. Well done. And handball the call. You could hear that one all over the park. Well, later on today, elsewhere in the Pac-12 in men's soccer, Cal down in Orange County facing UC Irvine, so another Pac-12 Big West matchup. It's a 5 o'clock kick down at Anteater Stadium. Pressure, Agostinelli spills for a moment off Jansen, but he's able to get it back. Also at 5 o'clock, San Diego State at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. That's 5 o'clock Pacific time start, 7 o'clock Central. In the corner, in the air, and a flag up on the far side. Well, Liam Doyle is about to re-enter the match. The freshman from Tokyo, Japan. He scored his first goal against SMU on Sunday, and it looked like this. Just admire this for a second. Bang! What a strike. Just kissed off the bottom of the crossbar over the goal line and in for the score. As the Cardinal had it all clicking throughout much of the first half against SMU. Took a 3-0 lead. And Jeremy Gunn was a little bit concerned that, hey, we better not concede here early in the second half and make it a 3-1 game. Otherwise, this thing could look a lot different all of a sudden. Stanford didn't. Kept their composure. Mustangs did get a penalty kick goal in the second half, but that's it. So Doyle, an ability to strike and to finish big plays. Agostinelli can finish as well. Terrific on service. Jackson Kill has a nose for goal. Stanford trying to find goal scorers. And perhaps those roles starting to solidify themselves here in the early portion of the season. Doyle has it now. Doesn't connect with Tingy. Aggies trying to work quickly. Out of bounds after a fine defensive sequence on the far side. Agostinelli with the flick towards Doyle, not enough on it. DeFlores the tackle. Stepping over. Cleary the bump. Cleary with good moments as a freshman. Fletcher Bank too, especially for much of that game against Villanova. Of course, Fletcher Bank got his first goal of his Cardinal career against the Mustangs. Speaking of Fletcher Bank, he's got it. Leaves it for Doyle. Outside, Fletcher Bank. Sizing it up. Thought he might strike, instead gets it to DeFlores, shoots, and misses somehow. I thought DeFlores had a terrific look at it, but that one just off target and errant. Almost had his second goal of the day. Let's take another look at this. This was very well set up. Nice patience shown by Fletcher Bank. Waiting. I thought he might give it a go right there. Terrific ball. And that might have been a tough angle to try to find it past Jansen there. So Jansen able to close on the ball a bit and give DeFlores a bit of a tougher angle to try to put it in the goal. So Jansen played that one quite well. Stanford defense playing that one quite well. Well, you can't horse collar, guys. That's pretty much illegal in just about every sport I know. Batchelder finding that out as he gets the whistle. Towards Agostinelli. Starting to see a lot more tackling in this game, and by that I don't mean on the ball. Mentioned the Pac-12 men's soccer slate for today. Cal at UC Irvine, San Diego State, and Nebraska Omaha. UCLA hosting Liberty at 7 p.m. and Oregon State hosting Seton Hall. And actually, those other games are tomorrow, September the 2nd. So we're looking into the future even further than I thought. So all those games are on Friday, along with Washington hosting Utah Valley. So Stanford, the only men's soccer program in action today. Everybody else gets into the mix tomorrow. We have reached the midway point of the second half, and we have reached another hydration break. With Stanford leading 2-0, it didn't take long for Stanford to get on the board in the second half, just 59 seconds in. Jackson Kill capitalizing, putting Stanford ahead 2-0, giving the Cardinal their current advantage.
Where are they playing?
A couple of women's games of note later on today. One of
Saturday, football is back, and we've got a full slate of games you won't want to miss. First at 11:30, UCLA takes the field to host Bowling Green. At 3, all eyes are on the number 14 Trojans as they square off in SoCal against Rice. Then at 6:30, we head north to the Palouse as the Cougs take on the Vantage. Saturday on Pac-12 Network, presented by Taco Bell.
Pac-12 Hour Stories, bringing you the most compelling and emotional stories from around the Conference of Champions.
It was a moment of like, he's here, he's with us. We can have a little bit more closure.
Once I was a member of a collegiate varsity program, that's when the doors flew open.
When you think about Title IX, like you can't not think about the impact she had on the sports realm.
And you're just the true definition of Black girl magic.
Pac-12 Hour Stories. Watch the latest episode anytime on Pac-12 Now.
2-0 Stanford as we are in the 69th minute. Cardinal with the lead over the UC Davis Aggies. Well, as you might expect, the Pac-12 well represented in the most recent MLS Super Draft. Look at that, Oseni Buda right at the very top with the number 8 pick overall. Ryan Saylor, what a terrific career that he had. Oh, Charlie Ostrom, Lucas Meek for the Washington Huskies. Couple of guys undrafted for Stanford, but doing big things. Zach Ryan to the New York Red Bulls, and Will Richmond also to San Jose. So that's how the Pac-12 went in the MLS Super Draft. We should also mention that Gabe Siegel, a midfielder for Stanford, signed with Bundesliga over in Germany. So he is in the pros as well. Jason Sue returning to the match for UC Davis. As that one bounces and falls eventually, but taken back by Stanford. And that center is deflected by UC Davis. Corner kick coming up. Aggies have used 21 field players today. 21. So they are reaching deep into their rotation today. Mentioned a couple of big women's soccer games coming up later on today. UCLA versus Duke. And around these parts, you got Stanford versus Penn State. Nittany Lions number 8, Stanford number 12. We will have that game for you here on the Pac-12 Network at 7 p.m. Looking forward to bringing that one to you. Agostinelli, front post. Falls towards the back, out of bounds. And you could very well argue that the future of women's soccer will be well represented in that game tonight. The top 3 recruits, according to Top Drawer Soccer, from the class of 2022 will be on the field tonight. 2 of them for Stanford. Elise Evans, number 1, a terrific center back, and Ali Montoya, forward. And 1 for Penn State, Amelia White. Liam Doyle got a head on it. And dangerous boot by the Cardinal. So Elise Evans was number 1. Ali Montoya was number 3. And Amelia White for Penn State, number 2. You will see all 3 of those young ladies this evening, along with a couple of fantastic teams. I'm looking forward to calling this one. 7 p.m. tonight on the Pac-12 Network, Stanford and Penn State. Takedown in the middle. Free kick for UC Davis. Keegan Hughes, 6'3", 190, grew an inch from last season. Kenny Livernois will get it back after the deflection off the wall. Doyle took the brunt of it. Agostinelli has it chipped away by Livernois. DeFlores hangs on. Sends it forward. Running at top speed, Fletcher Bank. Agostinelli onside. Centered. And a close call for Fletcher Bank. And again, another terrific ball. These centers and crosses are just superbly accurate, specifically from this guy, Carlo Agostinelli, with enough pace and a little bit of bend on it as well. Just give your teammate a chance. Just give him a chance to make a play. Tough sledding in the midfield. Riley with Agostinelli calling for it here on the near side, and he finally gets it. Too strong. Cleary overlapping and heading toward the touchline. Agostinelli just is a bit too much on that one. Well, San Diego State at Nebraska-Omaha tomorrow for that match there. Stanford heading out to Omaha themselves. They'll play at Creighton next week. Friday match, September the 9th, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. So another Big East foe for Stanford to try to conquer this year. Did it already against Villanova in the first match of the year. Stopping, getting space. But Fletcher Bank smothers it. To DeFlores, to Agostinelli, switching towards the corner. Bank giving it a go and making that perhaps a bit more interesting than it needed to be. And in fact, he forces a corner kick. So a brief grin from Fletcher Bank, a high five from Carlo Agostinelli, and it's little plays like that that set up potential opportunities for Stanford, and it's been the book for the Cardinal as long as I've been watching them, and this is my 9th year calling games on the Pac-12 network. So little plays like that potentially setting up big things down the stretch with Cam Silly returning to the match. Let's see where Agostinelli places this one. High. Back post, just overshoots Adnan. But the fine margins, particularly in this sport, and the fickle nature of this game, so many times it comes down to little plays that turn into big ones down the stretch. 75 minutes in. 2-0 Stanford. Shane DeFlores in the 33rd minute. Jackson Kill in the 46th. And relatively quiet by the Aggie attack so far here in the second half. Meanwhile, Cardinal trying to make some noise. Agostinelli, top speed, shoots into the side of the net. Terrific ball in Agostinelli's direction. And he was able to get there and try to make something happen. As again, the feed, this time I believe from Silly. And Agostinelli took a crack at it. Took it into the side of the net. Livernois was double teamed, and Stanford won it. Tripped up. Free kick coming up for the Cardinal. So after that plane ride to and from Omaha next week, Stanford has its first weekend of conference action. Can you believe this? September 15th. UCLA comes up this way. And then San Diego State on September the 18th. Both of those games to be contested and broadcasted here on the Pac-12 network. So conference play closer than you might think for Stanford men's soccer. Oregon State and Washington tied for the top spot in the Pac-12 preseason poll. UCLA picked third, Stanford picked fourth. So a bit rare to see that. More detail on what's coming up for the Cardinal. A brief respite after that first conference weekend. They got to go down to UC Santa Barbara, so another Pac-12 Big West matchup in the future for the Card. So Stanford picked fourth in the Pac-12 preseason poll. They weren't picked at all in the preseason rankings in the coaches poll. Agostinelli got a yellow card, by the way. Out of bounds. Stanford unranked and no votes last week. This week they're number 3. How's that for? We've talked about the fickle nature of this sport. Apparently that extends to the polls as well. And of course I had to ask Jeremy Gunn about it when we talked about it before today's match. And he said, look, weekly rankings are flattering, but I really don't pay attention to them. Call me when the RPI rankings start to matter. And that foul goes against Stanford. Flores tries to win it back. Gunn also noted that the moment that you pay too much attention to the weekly rankings, you get knocked out. Cardinal trying to mount. And perhaps add on to its 2-0 lead. Of course, Stanford, one of 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 10 rankings. Mass substitutions now for UC Davis, with Leighton Purchase coming in for the Cardinal. But among the substitutions for UC Davis, we have a new keeper, Spencer Gillen, has entered the match here in the 80th minute. There he is, sophomore from Alamo, California, making his debut. Did not play last year as a freshman. And seeing his first action so far in 2022. DeFlores, no. DeFlores with the nifty chest trap, tried to settle it and put it on frame, but just sent it over the top. Oh, he has one this afternoon. And came just that close to getting a second. Jansen, by the way, officially credited with 1 save. And let 2 in. Matt Frank hoping to close out a clean sheet here. He's credited with 2 saves. so far. There's Matt Frank. Vocal, mature, and calming presence. 3 nice traits to have in a keeper. As we're less than 9 minutes remaining in the second half. Shielded off, and now to throw it in. Dutra, who re-entered the match for UC Davis a few minutes ago. Bumped into the ref.
What's that going to be? Because it hit the referee, Stanford gets a drop ball. Right. Even though it wasn't a change. I guess the referee didn't want to.
Into the corner. Waiting a little bit, playing it back. And nobody along the back post. Connor Maurer and Ryan Dunn entering the match for Stanford. Maurer, a junior from Levittown, New York, played a couple minutes against SMU on Sunday. Dunn played 6 minutes against the Mustangs earlier this week. He's a junior from Huntersville, North Carolina. Hayden Carlson has it for the Aggies. Just letting it roll. Again, Gillen, the keeper now for UC Davis. Maurer got a head on that one. And a foul called on the Aggies. Good crowd on hand here at Kagan, especially for a Thursday afternoon. 3 p.m. start here on the West Coast. Stanford men's soccer very well supported by the fans, especially those that are here in the building underneath us where the shade is. That might be why things might be a bit sparse over the premium seats on the far side. But both soccer programs very well supported. Those guys are getting some sun. The women's soccer team had an exhibition last week against the Chinese national team, and it was sold out. 5,000 here in the building at Kagan Stadium. Really neat to see. And I'd imagine that there will be plenty in attendance tonight for Stanford women's soccer against Penn State. Number 8 Nittany Lions versus the number 12 Cardinal. If you can't make that match, it's cool. We got you covered right here on the Pac-12 Network. I'll see you at 7 p.m. for that one. To Doyle. To Flores. Waits. Now lets it go right there. Gillen goes up and makes the catch. 5 minutes to go. Talking to Aggies head coach Dwayne Schaefer about how young his team is. We told you at the top of the show they only have 7 upperclassmen, and the other 21 players on their roster are all first and second year players. So a very young squad, and this coming off the heels of losing the Big West Offensive Player of the Year in Maximilian Arfsten and Big West Midfielder of the Year Robert Mejia from last year's squad. So a lot of youth on the team. And he said, look, you know, my biggest question mark heading into the preseason was the experience and the confidence factor. And he admitted it's still the biggest challenge now that UC Davis is 1+ match into the season. But he also said this: I think we'll be a lot better now at the end of September than we might be now. Collision in the midfield. With less than 4 minutes to go, Kwabena Kwakwa in the game for the Cardinal, as he has a chance here, very close. Gillen somehow smothers it in traffic. Boy, a couple of Cardinal converging on Gillen. And that one is sent back, and it goes back into the net for a score. Stanford takes a 3-0 lead. Maybe not quite the way you draw it up, but they'll take it. As Gillen just didn't get the clearance. As it hit a Cardinal, I believe that might have been Purchase. And Purchase late just turns around and smiles and said, I'll take it. 3-0 Stanford. Well, Purchase, who had been so unlucky throughout the entirety of the 2021 campaign, perhaps he was due for a goal like that.
Goal 87 by number 16, Leighton Purchase.
First goal of Purchase's career. And off we go for the Aggies. The Aggies had everyone sent forward at the kickoff there. Purchase again. Gillen chasing it down. Goal number 1 for Purchase. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. Aggies trying to put one in before the game expires. They've got less than 3 minutes to do it. UC Davis, a couple of good looks and close calls in the first half. They haven't really come close to that in the second. Goal kick for the Cardinal. Matt Frank still in. Nico Ray McMillan in the match for Stanford. And McMillan swooping in, trying to make a play. Less than 2 minutes to go. Well, Gillen versus Purchase. Let's see what happens here. Purchase backs off. Bohane tried to go up and get that one. And now there's the flag up by the linesman here on the near side. Final minute of play.
1 minute remaining in the second half.
And Stanford is going to go off to a 3-0 mark. They've got San Jose State here on Sunday. That's a 7 p.m. kick right here on the Pac-12 network. Another offside. UC Davis heads across the bay. They'll face St. Mary's. That game also on Sunday. That'll be a 3 p.m. kick over in Moraga. Kwakwa. Dunn. Just sends it bouncing down the near sideline. Rolling slowly towards the touchline.
9, 8,
And the final seconds
6,
ticking away here at Kagan Stadium.
3, 2,
And the Stanford Cardinal in the win column once again. The final score here today, Stanford 3, UC Davis 0. Goals scored by Shane DeFlores in the 33rd minute, Jackson Kill in the 46th minute, and Leighton Purchase in the 87th minute. Stanford now 3-0 on the season, while UC Davis falls to 0-2 on the year. Fun match, and for the first time in 17 years, the Cardinal knock off the Aggies. It's the first meeting in 17 years as well. On behalf of our terrific Pac-12 Network crew, I'm Troy Clarity. Thank you again for joining us here today. Stanford 3-0 winners over the UC Davis Aggies. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay sane.